Hi everyone, I'm Anna George and today I'm going to talk to you about my new book, Tipping. Tipping's a dark comedy set at a local school when one mum reaches tipping point, thanks largely to her husband inadvertently locking her in the family car. After this moment, Liv Winsome decides it's time for change. And everything's up for grabs, including her family life, her husband's busy work schedule, even her boys' school could do with a rejig. So Liv sets about making a series of small but targeted changes to her life and even to herself. Now these tiny tweaks actually have an effect and lead to change beyond Liv's immediate circle. Duncan, her husband, starts to make some changes too, and the boys' school does have a look at itself. At the beginning of the book, the boys' school is involved in a sexting scandal and one of Liv's sons is involved in it too. So the book is really all about tweaks and how tweaks can be actually really impactful sometimes. So it's about the possibility of change through making targeted and smart tweaks. And it's about domestic activism, this idea that at home, Liv decides to launch a campaign really to get balance back in her life and in her family life and to get equity and fairness in the way that family is run. So in the split of tending to the children, in the split of the household duties, even the split of the financial load in the family is something that needs to be addressed. So it's all about the potential for change through making tweaks. Now, Tipping was inspired by a few school stories that I read about in the newspaper over the last sort of 4 years. One of them involved a private school in Melbourne where two boys created a dodgy Instagram account which was only online for a few hours or so. It was taken down, but those boys were expelled because what they'd done was offensive. But what was interesting to me was the reaction of the people around the boys, the parents of the girls, parents of the boys, and the other people involved at the school and parents at the school. Another story involved another boys' private school in Melbourne where a deputy head gave one of the boys a haircut on the day of the school photos, as I understand, because it didn't comply with the uniform code. And that man lost his job. Now, he was much loved at the school and the students and the parents rallied around him and led protests and had sit-ins and whatnot and pushed quite hard for that man to have his job reinstated, and it was subsequently. But what I found really interesting was that this haircut really acted as a tipping point because there were tensions and frustrations at that school which were sort of revealed to the wider community as a result of this haircut, and change came about. Not only did the man get his job back, but a couple of months later the relatively newer principal left. So all these tensions that had been simmering there came to the fore. And another story that inspired the book was about Harvard Business School. About 10 years ago or so, Harvard realised it had a gender equality problem in its MBA program. Really smart men and women from around the world were coming to do the 2-year course, but men were having a much better time of it. They seemed to get better grades. They enjoyed their time at the course more, and they were winning these prestigious prizes that are awarded to the really high achieving students at the end of the course in greater numbers than the women. It didn't really make sense why that was happening. So Harvard did some investigations, gathered some information, and found that classroom participation was a really big factor in the difference in the grades that the men and women were being given. Mainly men tended to dominate the conversation. Women, when they did participate, their participation was sometimes not remembered properly by the people in charge of the classes, the professors. And also women needed to be coached sometimes into how to participate in the class. They actually taught these really smart women how to raise their hands as if they were preschoolers needing to learn how to get attention in a classroom. Now, some of the women were outraged by that. I can imagine they would be. But very quickly, they found the culture of the school began to change because they made a raft of changes. They put note takers at the back of every class to see what was being said, so it was all tracked and then put to the professors, and they could see actually who was speaking and when and how much. And very quickly, within 2 years, the gender grade gap narrowed. Women started winning those prizes in much greater numbers at the end of the 2 years, and both men and women had a better time at Harvard. The culture of the school actually began to change profoundly. Now, not everyone was happy about it. Some of the men said they'd have the worst 2 years of their life. They hadn't signed up for this social experiment or to be guinea pigs. But I thought it was fascinating material and the sort of thing I wanted to put in my story about the possibility of change, how we can get people's behaviour to change. You don't need to sit down and argue with every person. You can make targeted, smart changes in the environment that those people are living in or studying in or working in, and then change will come. So Tipping is meant to be an uplifting and fun story. It's a story about domestic activism, it's about tweaks, and it's about family life. I had a lot of fun writing it. I hope you enjoy it. I'd love you to go into Harry Hartog Bookseller and grab yourself a copy. Do that online or in person, and then let me know what you think. Love to hear from you. Thanks. Bye-bye.